Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Trace Johannesson coming to you live from my back patio, as we've done for probably the last 10, 11 weeks, however long this has been going on. Want to give you kind of a few updates and just talk about a couple of subjects that have come up. First and foremost, this morning, a lot of us were greeted with some very, very terrible news, and that is that last night, Judge David Bridges from here in Rockwall and a fellow candidate was killed by a drunk driver. This is terrible, terrible news. And David Bridges was such a sweet man, just genuinely nice guy, a good old country boy. And I remember seeing him at the Republican Men's Club meetings. And he pulled up in his old F-250 with the mismatched colored quarter panel. He's just super nice guy. So I encourage everyone, look, if you've been drinking, call a cab, call an Uber. But what a terrible tragedy. And our prayers really go out to his family. This is just, what a horror. I mean, he and I were sitting in the AC yesterday having a conversation just hours before it happened. But we're obviously very saddened by that. In other news, let's talk about a couple of things that have been going on. A couple of Sundays ago, one of the topic of discussion was draining the swamp. So if you haven't seen that, go take a look at my opinions and my thoughts on what draining the swamp actually looks like. Then last week, my wife, Amy, joined me and kind of gave a wife's perspective. What's it going to be like for our family unit, our kids? What's it like from her perspective? Should I get elected and go to Washington? And then on Tuesday, we had our second webinar. If you all recall, the first one back in June was on Second Amendment. This one was on education and trades. And we had a local businessman, entrepreneur, Matt Nayland, as a guest, and we talked a lot about trade. So you can go check all of those out. They're saved on YouTube or Twitter or on Facebook. Facebook.com/Trace4Texas/live, and all those videos will be there. On Monday night, my wife and I drove out to Texarkana for the Texarkana, Texas Republican Women's Club. It was a nice invitation. Got to see some folks out there, some friendly faces and some new faces. There were 14 candidates there that night, and that's not even all of us, y'all. So whoever's keeping track at home, now that we're in the week 11 of 13 weeks, right? The race to August 8th, we're starting to see a couple of new faces show up, which is kind of interesting and kind of fun. One of our fellow candidates, Travis Ransom from out east, had the great idea to do a class photo. So all of us stood up at the front and took a photo together. So that was kind of cool. So you can look for that in the email updates. So on Saturday, thank you so much, Charlie Wilson, for putting together a kind of a meet and greet. It worked out really well. It was outside, kind of warm, but that was okay. We got to talk to a lot of the precinct chairs and other patriots in Franklin County, and they got to get to know us. It was less of a forum and less of a speech and more of just kind of a social, a meet and greet, and the format worked out really well. And thank you so much to Franklin County for the hot dogs and hamburgers, and the homemade chocolate chip cookies were ridiculously delicious. So I got a couple of questions this week, which were really good ones, and I thought it might be useful for me to share those with y'all. One of my friends asked me who can make a difference as soon as they arrive in DC, as he's talking through his decision-making process for who he'll support. And my answer to him was, all of us are going to be, whoever is picked will be a freshman congressman, and the freshman congressman will be one of 435 people. The power to make a difference is somewhat limited. Obviously, knowing folks in DC is useful. But for me, I explained to him, I said, look, this is a lot like the military. When a new lieutenant covers down on a platoon, the first thing they should do, if they're a good leader, is get with the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, the squad leaders, the corporals and sergeants, and learn from them, from the folks on the ground. They've been doing the job. They know where the bodies are buried. They know how to get stuff done. So a good leader will leverage that expertise. Well, the corollary, or the version of the NCO in Congress, are the congressional staff. They've been running the offices. They know who's who in the zoo, so to speak. So getting with those folks and basically having them guide me is what I would do. The second thing I would do is plug into the Veterans Caucuses and the Marine Corps Caucus, so that I can get up to speed and learn from folks with a ton of experience. Obviously, I'll link up with the Dean of Congress, Don Young, who's endorsed me. So he's been serving in Congress longer than anybody else. So he and his folks would know a lot. So that's what I would do when I got to DC. But again, I'm not naive enough to think that as a freshman congressman, I'm going to be able to make huge waves. I'll be one of 435 votes, just so we're clear. Who has the leadership skills the job requires? Well, I would opine that somebody who served in the military might qualify for that. Furthermore, somebody with a lot of probably business acumen and executive presence, from speaking only for myself, in my professional career, I advised Fortune 500 and Fortune 10 companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, and I lead multi-million-dollar projects with up to dozens of people. If you think that all those people don't have different politics or different agendas and trying to get everyone on the same sheet of music to accomplish the end objectives, if you think that's difficult, it absolutely is. But that's the kind of thing we need in Washington. We need to be able to navigate a lot of different personal and political agendas. We need to be able to figure out how to get people with different motivations all on the same page and working towards the same objectives. That's what I do in my professional career. That's what I do for a job. And one of them was like, look, it's all well and good. You've done stuff in the military. You've done stuff on city council. You've done stuff in your professional career. You've done volunteer work. You've served the community. But, don't tell me what you've done. Like, tell me what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Like I mentioned, the first thing I'm going to do is admit that I don't know a lot of what's going on. The things that I think I know, the people on the ground will be able to straighten me out and square me away. So I will be assigned to probably not the committees that I want, because I'll be a freshman congressman, but I'll take the committees that I'm given and I'll do the great job at it. I will, like I said, work with the Marine Corps Caucus and any of the other military organizations, and then reach into the folks I know who are currently serving in Congress and get as smart as I can, as fast as I can, and basically advocate for our district. Look, the other thing is, in business, we have like a kind of a 90-day plan. And I think in politics, it's like the first 100 days. But for me, 90 days makes more sense because it's more like a quarter. It's 3 months. We're going to build out, we in the district will build out a plan for calendar year 2021. We'll talk about what objectives we're going to try and achieve. We'll stack hands and agree together on what those are. And we'll build out the plan. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to be written in stone? Absolutely not. I mean, the plans are written in pencil, and sometimes you got to use an eraser, because as they say in the military, the best laid plans don't survive first contact with the enemy. So you have to adjust, but you start with something and you build on that. And that's kind of my thought process there. John Lopez, thank you so much for the condolences there. I appreciate that. I completely forgot to mention, but on Friday night, I was on a live show with Patriots in Tune. It was a great conversation, asked some good questions, and got an opportunity to speak with some really good folks. What have I heard in our community around the PRO Act and the Democrats' plan to strip Texas of its right to work laws? I haven't heard much about that here in the district, but anyone trying to strip Texas of its right to work laws is probably a fool's errand. The right to work in this state, look, the Republican Party is not a big pro-union party, and it would be a long shot to try and change that in the state of Texas. We've been a right to work state for a long, long time. So the answer is I don't know that much about it, John, but I appreciate the question quite a bit. But I can find out. And then lastly, he says, hey, good example of an effective Republican freshman, Dan Crenshaw, 100% agreed. The more I listen to Dan and read what he writes, the more I realize that he and I think a lot alike. And so emulating him and his thoughtful way of reasoning is a great example to follow. Coming up, Melanie's going to have us come out to Fannin County on Tuesday night, so that'll be great to meet some folks and see them again. That'll be our second actual forum. The first one was back in May, early on in the race, when they had a county convention out there. And then on August 1st, we've got an online candidate forum happening. So you can stay tuned for details on that. Other than that, everybody, have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And let's remember to keep David Bridges' family in your prayers. Y'all take care, and we'll talk soon.